Over the last while, I've been looking into exploring as many extreme sports games on the PlayStation 1 as possible. And the funny thing is, every time when I think I've covered the most amount of games in a certain category, another one just seems to pop up out of the wilderness. And a lot of these games would have ranged and originated from Japan. And the thing is, up until recent times, I would never have known anything about them at all. Even with this game here that we're covering in this video that goes by the name of Downhill Snow, that was released in Japan only for the PlayStation in 1998 and would focus around racing downhill slopes on skis through different tournaments and modes, where you can play as a variety of different characters, all with their own attributes and quirks, but you also have access to different ski based equipment that can aid in your progression. Now there are elements that are here that are very similar to other games in the same category, but the one thing that's interesting about this is that the slopes themselves, when you're racing on them, they're very wide in terms of how they appear compared to other games where they can feel very narrow and almost restricted. You don't really have that problem here at all. But that's not to say that it's easy. The first few tracks you play in are fairly simple to get into, and it does give you a good practical sense of how to get involved in the game from the beginning, but the difficulty does ramp up the further into it that you get, especially during the tournament modes, where you'll have to compete one-on-one on stunt based slopes where you have to speed down a ramp very fast and then hit a jump, and you'll have to execute the most amount of points possible using different tricks and button combinations to acquire the most amount of points to win the event. But this is where the game gets tricky, because even from trying to look at articles, even looking at the manual, because of the language barrier, it is tricky to understand which buttons is which and how to execute the stunts, because even as I'm recording this video, I still struggle to figure out how to do it properly. But in saying that, everything else in the game works fairly well. It has a really good control scheme, it's very responsive, it plays very well, and it looks half decent, while it's not groundbreaking when you look at other games that are out there. But this is just another one of those rare and yet interesting games that only saw a release in Japan. And the funny thing is, even with recording this video, up until say a few weeks ago, I knew absolutely nothing about this game. Nothing at all. Like I said at the start of the video, because I'm currently working on a big project video which I hope to have out over the next while, where I'm looking at a lot of these winter sports or extreme sports games. And the funny thing is, I thought I'd covered as many of them as I possibly could have, and I thought that that was it. Only now I'm realising that when I go looking at a particular game, or I just happen to be nosy, just looking at other games to play or to try, and then these other games are starting to pop up out of nowhere, and I'm like, did that release on the PlayStation? Like, I never seen that before. So then I go down the rabbit hole of trying to find as much information as I can about it, and only to find nothing really at all. There's very little in terms of references. You might find something on the GameFAQs website that has a small snippet of information about when the game was released and so forth, but there's very little else. Like, there's no like articles or reviews or anything that you can really think of. Now, if you do go onto other various websites, I have managed to find like a digital manual where someone has scanned the manual in, as you can see here on screen, so you can have a visual reference of what it looks like. But truth be told, to find out more about this game, as I was that intrigued by it, because again, I'm making a video where I want to cover as many of these games as possible on the PlayStation 1, I said to myself, you know what, I need to get this game. So that's where it took me to eBay, and I ended up buying the game. Now, I had to wait a couple of weeks for it, obviously, because it was coming from Japan, but I didn't have to wait overly long. I got it within only a few weeks, a lot quicker than I expected. So as soon as I got it set up and I started playing it, and to be fair, I was enjoying it. It is better than I thought it would be, but yet at the same time, it's not overly complicated. Yes, the tricks and the moves are hard to execute. That's the biggest gripe I have currently with the game, but it's a fairly simplistic approach to ski racing and just downhill slopes. But the crazy thing about it is that there's so many of these type of games that are on the PlayStation. Like, I kid you not, I guarantee if I go to put out this video, knowing my luck, another game will pop up that I completely missed, that I'm not aware of at all, because most of the games that I know of from the European region or even North America, and I know I can gain access to them. But the thing is, Japan has so many games that most of us have never heard of, and they just do pop up from time to time. Now, in saying that, as soon as I got the game in the post, funnily enough, a little bit more information started to creep up about the game online when I started to go and do a bit more research. And it's funny, things just take time, I think, to come to fruition with regards to a lot of these games, because once people become more aware of them and they realise how rare they are, more people start to take an interest in them. But even for me, while I'm covering content on this channel, that's starting to become an important feature for me, even just for helping with creating content and so forth. But it's also intriguing because I'm finding loads of cool hidden little gems and rare items that I never thought existed. Because even when I go back to the early days of when I grew up with the PlayStation, there were so many games that I owned, but there were so many games that I wanted to play, and yet there were so many even more games that I used to see previews in magazines and I hadn't a clue what the hell they were, but I was intrigued enough to want to play them. And that is my goal with this channel, is to literally try and play every single game possible that was released on the PlayStation and share that experience with everybody, even the ones that weren't potentially released, like some of the prototypes, which you can get access to online luckily these days if you know where to look. But there's a lot of cool, interesting titles. Yes, they're not all AAA, they're not all world class, but they're intriguing, they're different, they offer something different, more to the point. And if you're curious, let's just put it this way, between this here, the PlayStation 1 and the PS2, is literally a goldmine of little hidden gems that'll pop up every now and then. So I'm excited to see what else I can find, and it will be interesting to see what pops up next. Make no mistake, because there will be something. That's what I love about the console, is that it keeps surprising you. Like 30 years later, as of recording this video, the console still has the ability to surprise gamers. It still has that unique lore behind it that just keeps you curious, because there's so much there to offer, and a lot of it we still don't know about. So that's why I'm hoping, even by making videos on these type of rare games, that at least will bring that to the masses, and that a lot of you out there will be able to understand these games, maybe even go and play them for yourselves. Yeah, it's interesting, I'll say that. So even with regards to the game, yes, it's not the most defining game on the PlayStation, far from it, but the fact is that it's rare and I didn't know anything about it up until recently. Yeah, it just piqued my curiosity so much in a way that I had to go out and buy it just so I could record footage for this video. But it is what it is, the things you have to do to create content, but it's an idea, and if anything you get to play a fairly decent game at that too, and enjoy it for what it is. But yeah, very cool indeed. So hopefully there will be a lot more of these games that'll pop up that will pique your interest, and I'll try to cover as many of them as I can in future videos. With that being said, it would be interesting to hear your thoughts of this game. Did you know anything about it? Did you even know that it existed? Because I didn't know up until a few weeks ago, so if there is anyone out there that does know anything about it, make sure to let us know down in the comments below. And with that being said, if you want to see a lot more of these extreme sports games that I have covered previously on the channel, which believe me, there are a ton of them, I have made a playlist that you can check out here on screen to see more of them in action. And as always, keep those gaming memories alive.